The buy option clause for Marcus Rashford from Man United to Barcelona, 30 million euros, expired yesterday at the end of March.
The reports said the Rashford clause had expired. The reports were wrong. Fabrizio Romano made sure everyone knew it. But here is what happens after Romano corrects the record. Because the real story is not whether the clause is valid or not. The real story is what is standing between Barcelona and a done deal. And that obstacle has a name. And it is not Marcus Rashford, and it is not Manchester United. Welcome back. Today we are getting into one of the most layered, most interconnected transfer stories of this entire season. And I want to be upfront about something before we go any further. This story has more moving parts than most people realize. On the surface, it looks simple. Barcelona want Rashford. Manchester United want their money. Romano confirmed the clause is still valid. Done, right? Move on. Wrong. Because underneath that surface, underneath the headlines and the Romano update and the fee dispute, there is a web of connections, dependencies, and decisions that are all happening simultaneously and all affecting each other in ways that make this one of the most genuinely fascinating transfer situations in European football right now. And by the time this video is over, you are going to see this story in a completely different way than you did when you clicked on it. So let us start at the beginning. Let us start with the chaos that Romano had to walk into and clean up this week. If you have been following the Rashford situation over the last few weeks, you will have seen the reports. Multiple outlets, multiple journalists, multiple sources, all pointing in the same direction. The buy clause that Barcelona have on Marcus Rashford had expired. The window had closed. The option was gone. And with it, Barcelona's ability to sign Rashford permanently this summer had effectively disappeared. These reports spread quickly. They were shared widely. And for a significant number of Barcelona fans and football followers, they became the accepted version of events. The Rashford story was over. Barcelona had missed their window. Time to move on. And then Fabrizio Romano spoke. Romano, on his YouTube channel, addressed the situation directly and without ambiguity. The clause has not expired. The buy option is still valid. It runs until the end of the season. Every report suggesting otherwise was wrong.
Then many of you guys today ask me about Marcus Rashford, because some stories coming out of Spain, and I always say that with maximum respect, every source, every journalist has his own information, report that the buy option clause for Marcus Rashford from Man United to Barcelona, 30 million euros, expired yesterday at the end of March. Sources at both clubs, Man United and Barcelona, suggest that the 30 million euros option is still valid until the end of the current season. So if Barcelona arrive tomorrow and pay 30 million euros, they can still sign Marcus Rashford. Now it's on Barcelona to make a decision, because the reality is that behind the scenes, Barcelona have an agreement with Marcus Rashford on contract terms, with the player, with his camp, with his brother who is taking care of Marcus Rashford.
And Romano, who does not make these kinds of corrections unless he is completely certain of his information, unless he has spoken directly to people inside the situation, was emphatic about it. Now this matters for two reasons. The first is obvious. The deal is still alive. Barcelona still have the ability to trigger that clause. The window has not closed. The story has not ended. Everything that looked like it was over is still very much in play. But the second reason this matters is less obvious and far more interesting. Because when Romano steps in to correct the narrative this publicly and this emphatically, when he takes the time to specifically address and dismiss reports that have been circulating widely, it tells you that the real story is important enough to get right. It tells you that what is actually happening in this situation is significant enough that allowing the wrong version to become the accepted version would be genuinely misleading. And that brings us to what is actually happening. Because the clause being valid does not mean the deal is simple. It does not mean Barcelona and Manchester United are close to an agreement. And it absolutely does not mean that the path to making this permanent is clear and uncomplicated. Far from it. Let us talk about what Barcelona actually think of Marcus Rashford, because this is where the story gets interesting in a way that nobody predicted when this loan was first arranged. Cast your mind back to the circumstances that led to Rashford leaving Manchester United on loan in January. The narrative around him at Old Trafford had become toxic. Questions about his attitude, his commitment, his professionalism. These were not whispers. They were front-page stories. Ruben Amorim had made it clear that Rashford did not fit his plans, did not fit his culture, and did not fit the kind of team he was trying to build at United. The message from the manager was unambiguous. Rashford needed to leave, and the sooner the better. And Rashford, for his part, had his mind set on one destination: Barcelona. Not a return to the Premier League, not a move to another European league. Barcelona specifically. Flick's Barcelona. The Barcelona of Yamal and Lewandowski and Pedri and Rafinha. The Barcelona that was playing some of the most exciting football in Europe. That was where Rashford wanted to be. So the loan was arranged. £25 million buy option included. And everyone assumed, given the circumstances, given the narrative around Rashford's attitude, given the way things had deteriorated at United, that this would be a difficult, complicated loan spell. A player trying to rebuild his reputation at a club that did not really need him, in a system that was already functioning brilliantly without him. That is not what happened. What happened instead was that Marcus Rashford arrived at Barcelona and immediately impressed everyone around him. His professionalism, the thing that had been questioned most loudly at Old Trafford, was described internally as a breath of fresh air. He worked hard. He listened. He integrated himself into the squad without ego, without drama, without any of the attitude problems that had defined the conversation around him at United. And Hansi Flick, a manager who values attitude and work ethic as highly as he values technical ability, noticed. Flick did not just see a player with talent. He saw a player with versatility, a player who could operate in multiple positions within his system, a player who could play wide, who could play as a second striker, who could press intelligently, who could contribute both goals and assists from different starting positions depending on what the match demanded. That versatility, that tactical flexibility, is exactly what Flick prizes above almost everything else in a player, and Rashford, to his enormous credit, delivered it. Even through the cold streak that has affected his recent performances, the dip in form that happens to every player at some point during a long season, Flick's appreciation for what Rashford brings has not wavered. The manager still rates him, still values him, still sees him as a genuine asset to this squad going forward. And that managerial endorsement is the foundation on which this entire permanent transfer conversation is built. So, Barcelona want to keep Rashford. That much is clear. Flick wants him. The club is happy with him. The player himself wants to stay. All three parties, Barcelona, Flick, and Rashford, are aligned on the outcome they want. So why is the deal not done? Why, with all three parties pointing in the same direction, is this negotiation still unresolved? The answer is Manchester United, and specifically Manchester United's asking price. The buy option in the loan agreement is set at £25 million. That is the figure United agreed to when they sanctioned the loan. That is the number that was written into the contract. And from United's perspective, from the perspective of a club that is trying to recoup money on a player they paid significant fees and wages to over many years, £25 million is not an unreasonable demand. It is actually a relatively modest fee for a player of Rashford's age and profile. And United are standing firm on it. Barcelona's position is different. They want Rashford permanently. They want to activate the clause. But they do not want to pay £25 million as a single upfront payment. Their preference is installments, spreading the fee across multiple years in a way that fits within their financial structure and their FFP obligations. Alternatively, they have explored the possibility of another loan arrangement that would delay the permanent transfer while keeping Rashford at the club. And United, who need the money, who are not in a position to be generous with payment structures, who are operating under their own financial pressures, are not particularly interested in installments or extended loan arrangements. They want the $25 million. They want it as agreed, and they are prepared to hold their position until Barcelona meet their terms. This is the poker game. Barcelona sitting on one side of the table, preferring flexibility and installments. United sitting on the other, holding their cards, waiting for Barcelona to blink. And right now, neither side is moving. But here is where the story takes a turn that nobody was expecting. Here is where a completely separate situation at Barcelona walks into the middle of this negotiation and changes the entire dynamic. Robert Lewandowski. We have talked about the Lewandowski situation in detail recently. The contract expiring in June, the one-year extension offer with reduced salary, the clubs from Europe, Saudi Arabia, and MLS already in contact with his camp. And all of that remains relevant. But what Romano revealed this week adds a new dimension to that story, one that connects it directly to the Rashford situation in a way that makes both negotiations simultaneously more complicated and more interesting. Romano confirmed that Lewandowski's agent is actively presenting options to his client. Italy, MLS, other destinations. The agent is doing his job, making sure his client has the full picture of what is available before making a decision. And the key detail in all of this, the detail that connects everything, is what Hansi Flick sees in Rashford as a potential striker option. Flick rates Rashford's ability to play as a striker, not just as a wide player, not just as a support forward coming off the bench, as a genuine striker option, a player who can lead the line, who can function in the central role, who can be the focal point of Barcelona's attack in moments when the tactical situation demands it. And that assessment, that belief in Rashford's ability to contribute in multiple positions, including as a striker, changes the financial calculation around the £25 million fee completely. Think about it this way. Barcelona need a striker. Whether Lewandowski stays or goes, whether he accepts the reduced salary extension or takes one of the options his agent is presenting, the striker position needs to be addressed this summer. If Lewandowski leaves, that need becomes urgent and significant. The club would need to invest in a number 9, and a quality number 9, a genuine elite-level striker capable of performing in Flick's system at the highest level, would cost far more than £25 million. Significantly more. Julian Alvarez, Victor Gyökeres, any of the names being discussed in connection with Barcelona's striker search, the fees involved are in completely different territory from the £25 million that United are asking for Rashford. We are talking about fees that start at 60, 70, 80 million and go upwards from there. So, if Rashford can cover the striker position, if his versatility means that Barcelona do not need to make a separate, much more expensive investment in a dedicated number 9, then £25 million is not just reasonable. It is extraordinary value. It is one of the best pieces of business Barcelona could do this summer. And that is exactly the internal argument being made at Camp Nou right now. That Rashford at £25 million, capable of playing wide and as a striker, is worth more to this squad than almost any other signing they could make at that price point. That his versatility addresses multiple tactical needs simultaneously. That Flick's confidence in him, in his attitude, his work rate, his ability to function in multiple roles makes this not just a good deal but potentially a transformational one at a fee that Barcelona can actually afford without creating serious problems elsewhere. But, and this is the part that Romano's update makes impossible to ignore, the Lewandowski dimension cuts both ways. Because here is the complication. The scenario where Lewandowski stays for one more year, where he accepts the reduced salary extension and commits to Barcelona for the 2026-27 season, actually makes the Rashford permanent transfer more complicated rather than less. Here is why. If Lewandowski stays, Barcelona already have their number 9 for next season. The urgency around the striker position disappears, or at least reduces significantly. And with that urgency gone, the internal argument for paying £25 million for Rashford, the argument that his striker capability makes him worth that fee, loses some of its force. Flick still rates Rashford. The club is still happy with him. The desire to keep him permanently is still genuine. But the financial justification for meeting United's terms becomes harder to make when the striker position is already occupied by one of the greatest goal scorers in the history of the game. And Barcelona's other priorities, Grimaldo, Bastoni, potentially Alvarez, or another major signing, are all competing for the same limited financial resources. This is why the two situations are so directly connected. This is why Romano mentioning Lewandowski's agent activity in the same conversation as the Rashford update was not coincidental. These two stories are not running in parallel. They are running through each other. And the resolution of one will directly determine the resolution of the other. If Lewandowski goes, Rashford's path to a permanent Barcelona stay becomes cleaner, more financially justified, more urgent. If Lewandowski stays, the negotiations become more complicated, the fee dispute with United becomes harder to resolve, and the outcome becomes genuinely uncertain. Let us talk about what Manchester United want from all this. Because in the middle of everything, in the middle of Barcelona's internal deliberations and Lewandowski's contract situation and Flick's tactical assessments, there is a club sitting in Manchester that has very specific needs and very specific expectations from this negotiation. United sanctioned this loan because they had no choice. Rashford had his mind set on Barcelona. Amorim had his mind set on rebuilding without him. The loan was the only option that served everyone's immediate interests. But United are not a charity. They are not doing Barcelona any favors. And the £25 million clause was written into the agreement precisely because United wanted to ensure that if Rashford went to Barcelona and rediscovered his best form, the club would receive fair value for the player. That is exactly what has happened. Rashford has gone to Barcelona, has impressed Flick, has integrated well, has shown the kind of form and attitude that has restored confidence in his ability. And now, United want their $25 million, every penny of it, upfront if possible, on a structured payment plan only if absolutely necessary, and they are standing firm. The only leverage United really have in this situation is the clause deadline and the knowledge that Barcelona want the player. If Barcelona decide not to activate the clause, Rashford returns to United in the summer, which is a scenario nobody particularly wants, including United, because it means having a high-earning player they do not want back in their squad. So there is pressure on both sides. But United's resolve on the fee, their refusal to budge from $25 million, is currently the immovable object in this negotiation. And Barcelona, with their FFP situation, their other transfer priorities, their Lewandowski uncertainty, are the force trying to find a way around that immovable object rather than through it. Something has to give, and the clock is ticking. Let us zoom out and look at the complete picture. Because when you lay out all the pieces, the Romano correction, the fee dispute, the Lewandowski connection, Flick's assessment of Rashford, United's firm position, you start to see the shape of how this is going to resolve. And I want to give you my honest read of where this ends up. First, the Romano correction matters more than it might seem. When Romano steps in to clarify a situation this directly, it is not just about setting the record straight. It is a signal that the deal is real, that the parties involved are serious, and that the story has not reached its conclusion. If this were a deal that was genuinely dead, if Barcelona had quietly decided to let the window close and move on, Romano would not have bothered. The fact that he stepped in tells you that the people inside this situation still believe it can happen. Second, the fee dispute is real but not insurmountable. £25 million is not a number that should be beyond Barcelona's reach, particularly if they structure it cleverly. The installments conversation, the preference for spreading the payment rather than paying it all up front, is a common feature of modern football transfers. Clubs do it all the time. And United, while they are holding firm publicly, are also aware that getting $25 million in structured payments is better than getting nothing and having Rashford back in their squad. Third, the Lewandowski decision is the key that unlocks everything else. When Lewandowski makes his call, when he tells Barcelona whether he is staying or going, the Rashford negotiation will immediately clarify. If Lewandowski leaves, expect Barcelona to move quickly and decisively on Rashford. The urgency will be real, the financial justification will be clear, and the deal will get done. If Lewandowski stays, the timeline extends, the negotiations become more delicate, and the outcome becomes less certain. And fourth, Rashford himself is in a position of more power than people realize. He has performed well enough that Flick genuinely wants him. He has a contract situation at United that makes a return to Old Trafford genuinely unappealing for everyone involved. And he has shown through his attitude and professionalism at Barcelona that the narrative around him at United was not the full picture. He is a player whose stock has risen during this loan. And players whose stock is rising tend to end up exactly where they want to be. Here is where everything stands right now. Fabrizio Romano has confirmed the clause is valid. Barcelona have an agreement with Rashford on personal terms. The obstacle is the fee and the payment structure. And sitting quietly in the background of all of it, making his own calculations, weighing his own options, listening to what his agent is telling him about Italy and MLS and everything else, is Robert Lewandowski. Two transfer stories, completely different on the surface, completely intertwined underneath, and both of them heading toward conclusions that will define what Barcelona look like next season and beyond. Romano stepped in this week and told us the Rashford story is not over. He is right. But he also gave us the clearest indication yet that the ending of this story depends on something that has not been decided yet. Something that is being decided right now, in conversations that are happening privately, carefully, with enormous consequences for everyone involved. When Lewandowski makes his call, the dominoes start falling. And when they fall, whatever direction they fall in, the Rashford situation will resolve itself quickly. One way or another, Barcelona are playing poker. Manchester United are holding their cards. And somewhere in Poland, a 37-year-old striker is deciding whether to stay or go. And his decision, his quiet, personal, carefully considered decision, is about to change everything. Come back for the latest as both of these stories develop, because they are moving fast and you will not want to miss a single update. Like the video if Romano's update gave you a clearer picture of what is actually happening. Subscribe if this level of Barcelona analysis is what you want every single week. And drop your prediction in the comments. Does Rashford stay permanently? And does Lewandowski's decision change everything? Until next time.